Anna found the photograph on a night when the palace was too quiet for any human to feel safe. She was dusting the carved shelves in the Vampire King's daughter's room when a silver frame slipped from behind a stack of music books and landed at her feet. The glass did not even crack. Anna picked it up, ready to mutter at herself, and then her breath stopped. The girl in the picture had her own dark eyes, her own crooked smile, even the tiny scar near her eyebrow. It was Anna at 5 years old, standing beside a silver-eyed child with faint fangs. The chamber smelled of cold incense. Moonlight leaked through the high window, turning dust into slow, pale sparks. Anna's worn uniform scratched at her neck as she swallowed, heart pounding. She had never met Princess Alara, only heard servants whisper that the Vampire King's daughter was kept far from humans. Yet in this private room, someone had placed a picture of Anna as if she belonged there, as if she and Alara had shared a childhood she did not remember. She lifted the frame closer. The silver-haired child held her hand. Behind them stood a tall man in dark robes, a crown of black iron circling his brow, his hand resting on Anna's small shoulder in a strangely gentle way. Even on paper, his presence was unmistakable. The Vampire King. Anna did not remember the day or the weight of his touch. For a moment, she felt as if someone had reached into her past and twisted it into a new shape without asking. But before we continue, I want to invite you to something very special. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like. This helps me see that you support me and enjoy my stories. And comment below which city you're watching from. Now, let's continue. The ticking of the clock on the mantel grew loud in the silence. Her mother had always said they were nobodies from the mud streets outside the capital, saved from hunger only because Anna had been chosen to serve in the palace. No part of that story included a crown, or a princess, or her own small face smiling beside the monsters everyone feared. Anna slid the frame back onto the shelf, but the image stayed burned behind her eyes, hot and frightening. The door opened with a soft click. Anna spun around, pulse jumping. A girl stood there, pale as moonlight in a dark blue gown. Her hair fell like silver water, and her eyes, those same silver eyes from the photograph, studied Anna with quiet intensity. The air cooled around her, carrying that faint metallic tang that always clung to the vampire court. "You found it," the girl said softly. "I wondered how long it would take you." Anna dropped into a curtsy. "Forgive me, Princess. I was only cleaning." Her voice shook. Alara stepped into the room and closed the door. She walked past Anna and picked up the photograph, thumb brushing the edge of the frame. "You really don't remember," Alara murmured. "You and I met long before you came here as a servant. My father brought you to the palace during the drought when you were still small." Heat and cracked earth stirred at the edges of Anna's mind, her parents whispering in the dark. "My parents said the king sent grain to our village out of mercy," she said. "They said I was chosen later to work here because I was quick with my hands." The extra grain. The way her father's eyes always clouded when she asked about that year. Listening to herself now, the story sounded thin, full of holes she had never dared to touch. Alara's gaze softened. "He did send grain," she said quietly, "but not as a gift. Your village made a bargain. One child, promised to the royal line in exchange for rain and protection. A human heart to anchor the throne. They chose you, Anna. You stayed here for a season as a child. Then they sent you back until you were old enough." She set the frame down. "Tomorrow, at the blood moon, my father intends to bind you to him as his human anchor. That is the truth no one told you." The word promised rang in Anna's ears. She saw her mother's tired smile, heard her say, "Be grateful, girl, the palace is our blessing." She remembered the guards who watched her more closely than the others, the way the steward flinched when she wandered near the throne room, bound to the Vampire King, sharing his power, his pain, his years. It did not feel like honor. It felt like chains she had never seen. "I never agreed," Anna whispered. "It is my life. They cannot give it away." She stumbled back. Alara reached out as if to steady her, compassion flickering across her pale face. "I asked to be the one to tell you," the princess said, urgency breaking through her calm, "because I remember the child who held my hand and made me feel less alone. I thought, if you understood, you might choose to stay. You would not be a prisoner. You would be— Anna did not wait to hear the last word. The walls felt too close, the air too thin. Without another bow or apology, she lunged for the door. The latch slammed as she yanked it open and ran into the corridor, her shoes slapping against polished stone. The taste of iron filled her mouth, half fear, half the metallic chill of the palace air. Behind her, Elara called her name, but Anna did not stop. All she could see was that old photograph, the king's hand on her shoulder, and a future she wanted no part of. So she ran. Anna did not remember making any choices as she fled through the dim palace corridors. Her body simply moved, guided by fear sharper than thought. The lanterns flickered along the stone walls, casting shifting shadows that reminded her too much of fangs, claws, and the quiet power that ruled the kingdom. Her breath sounded loud in her ears. Every turn smelled of cold metal and old incense, the scent that clung to every vampire who walked these halls. Her footsteps echoed, betraying her path, but she could not slow down. She felt watched, as if the king's eyes were already following her from somewhere unseen. The palace at night was a maze. Tall doors, glowing sigils engraved into pillars, tapestries depicting victories of kings long gone. She had cleaned these corridors countless times, always with respectful distance, always pretending she was invisible. But now the place felt alive, listening. A gust of cold air swept past her, brushing her hair back as she skidded around a corner. She pressed a hand to her chest, trying to steady the frantic beating. She did not belong here. She never had. And yet the photograph said otherwise, twisting everything she believed about her life. Voices emerged from the far end of the hallway. Royal guards, their boots heavy against the floor. Anna darted into an unused chamber, pushing the door gently until it clicked shut. The room was dark except for a sliver of moonlight slipping through a cracked window. Dust coated the long table in the center. She crouched beneath it, knees against her chest, swallowing the urge to sob. Her mother's voice whispered in her memory. "Never ask questions, Anna. There are things you're better not knowing." The words stung now, carrying a truth her mother had hidden to protect or betray her. Anna couldn't decide which hurt more. Outside, the guards passed by, their low conversation drifting through the door. "The king wants the girl kept safe until the ritual," one said. "She's probably asleep in her quarters." The casual certainty made Anna's stomach twist. They did not see her as a servant or a person. She was a piece of a pact, a living tool. Her hands shook as she covered her mouth, terrified they would hear her breathing. When the footsteps finally faded, she waited several heartbeats longer before slipping back into the corridor. She needed to get out, beyond the gates, beyond the kingdom if she could. Somewhere her name and her blood meant nothing. She reached the courtyard, where the night air was colder, sharper. The sky stretched wide above her, the moon sitting high and pale. Torches flickered along the path leading down to the outer gardens. Anna ducked behind a stone archway, watching two vampire guards patrol the entrance. Their movements were smooth, almost silent, their pale eyes reflecting the torchlight. There was no slipping past them, not without drawing attention, not without losing the small advantage she had by remaining unnoticed. She scanned the yard, heart pounding, until she saw a narrow servant's passage behind the herb greenhouse. She had never used it, but she had dusted its entrance enough times to know it led outside the palace walls. Anna moved quickly, staying in the shadows. The gravel crunched lightly under her shoes. Every breath tasted of ash and dew. When she reached the greenhouse, she slipped behind the rows of winter herbs, pushing aside a cluster of hanging ropes until she found the small wooden door. Her hands trembled as she gripped the cold metal latch. Part of her expected alarms to ring or magic to flare from the hinges. Instead, the door opened with a soft groan. The passage beyond smelled of damp earth and old stone. She stepped inside and pulled the door shut, letting darkness wrap around her like a blanket. Her steps echoed softly as she followed the narrow corridor. Water dripped from somewhere ahead. A faint breeze touched her cheek, and she quickened her pace. The hope that she might escape, that she might reclaim her life, flared in her chest like a fragile flame. But just as she reached the exit, a slabs of stone opening into the forest beyond the palace, someone stepped into her path. Elara. The princess's silver hair gleamed faintly in the moonlight, spilling from the doorway behind her. She stood still, expression unreadable, her hands clasped in front of her. "You run fast," she said softly. "Faster than I expected." Anna froze. Her throat tightened. "Please," she whispered, though she wasn't even sure what she was begging for. Freedom? Answers? Mercy? Alara took a single step closer, the air cooling. "I'm not here to stop you," she said. "If you walk past me, I won't call the guards." Her voice trembled, just barely. "But I need you to hear the truth first, not the version the elders want, not the version that binds you, my version." Anna swallowed hard, her back pressed to the cold stone wall. "Why? Why tell me anything?" "Because I remember the way you held my hand when we were small," Alara said, her voice breaking for a moment. "And because the ritual they plan, it won't just tie you to my father, it will destroy what's left of your humanity. You deserve to choose your fate with your eyes open." Wind rushed through the doorway behind Alara, carrying the scent of pine and night. Freedom was only a few steps away. Yet something in the princess's trembling voice rooted Anna to the stone floor. "What aren't they telling me?" Anna asked. Alara lowered her gaze. "That you're not meant to survive the binding." Anna's breath vanished. The world tilted, and for the first time since she found the photograph, she felt real terror. Not of the palace or the king, but of the truth itself. The words struck Anna like a cold blade pressed to her spine. Not meant to survive. She stared at Alara as if waiting for her to admit it was a cruel joke, a lie told to keep her inside the palace. But the princess's silver eyes held nothing but fear, real fear. The kind that cracked through her perfect vampire calm. The wind hissed through the passage, brushing Anna's cheek as though pulling her toward the forest. She could run now, she could vanish, and yet her feet would not move. "Tell me everything," she whispered, her voice thin and hoarse. "All of it." Alara looked away, pressing a hand to the damp stone wall. "The ritual my father plans was forbidden centuries ago. A binding with a human heart was meant to stabilize the throne, yes, but only if the human was willing. The anchor must offer themselves freely, without coercion. Otherwise, the magic turns violent. It tears both souls apart." She looked back at Anna, expression tight with guilt. "The court knows this. The elders know this. They hid the truth because they believe the kingdom is weak, because they think sacrificing you is worth strengthening the throne." Anna felt her pulse pounding in her ears. The chamber suddenly seemed smaller, colder. Her stomach knotted. "Why me?" she asked. "What makes my life so valuable to them?" Alara hesitated before answering. "Because you carry old blood, human blood touched by an ancient pact, one that runs through only a few families. You don't know it, but your lineage has always been linked to the throne. Humans like you are rare, so rare that the court has hunted for one for decades." She stepped closer, her voice softening. "When you arrived as a child during the drought, the king sensed it. He protected you. I think he grew fond of you, but the council twisted that into something else." Anna shook her head, trying to piece together the fragments of her childhood she barely remembered. A palace with high ceilings. A silver-haired girl grasping her hand. A tall man bending down to lift her from the ground. But those memories had always felt like dreams. "My parents lied," she whispered. "They knew all along." "Maybe they thought they were saving you," Alara said gently. "Or saving themselves. Humans in poverty have few choices when vampires promise favors." She rubbed her arms as though cold. "Anna, I didn't bring you here to make you stay. I need you to understand what you're running from." Anna glanced toward the doorway at the end of the passage. Beyond it lay the forest, dark and quiet. The air drifting in smelled of pine and damp soil. The world outside did not know her name. Outside, she was no one, but being no one seemed safer than being chosen. "Then what should I do?" she whispered. Alara's expression tightened. "If you run now, the king will search for you, not out of cruelty, but because he believes losing the ritual will break the kingdom. He may even think he's saving you from something worse. My father is not a monster, Anna, but he is a king, and kings rarely choose mercy when power is at stake." Anna's chest tightened. "So if I stay, I die. And if I run, I'm hunted. Alara didn't answer. Silence was an answer of its own. Anna stepped back, pressing her palms to her face. She felt her breath stuttering. She couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The world spun between two impossible choices. All she wanted was her small bed in the servants' wing, her quiet mornings cleaning the gardens, her mother's tired smile. But that life had never belonged to her. It was borrowed, already paid for. Listen, Alara said suddenly, taking Anna's hands before she could recoil. Her skin was cool, but her grip was firm. There is a third option, a dangerous one, but real. Anna's eyes lifted, desperate. What is it? To break the pact, Alara whispered. If the human chosen rejects the ritual in the presence of the throne itself, of the crown, the blood crest, and the king, the ancient magic collapses. The bond becomes void, and no king can bind you again. Anna stared at her. Reject it? Just like that? Alara shook her head. No, it won't be simple. The court won't allow you near the throne now that you know the truth. The king might try to stop you, thinking he's protecting you. And the crest itself will test you. It senses fear. She lowered her voice further. But if you stand before it and refuse with your own free will, the pact ends forever. You walk away a free human. For the first time since she had found the photograph, a spark of hope flickered in Anna's chest. Small, frail, but alive. Why are you helping me? She asked softly. Alara's gaze wavered. Because I never had a choice in anything, she said. Not in my life, not in my future, not even in the friends I was allowed to keep. Her voice tightened. But you, just once, I want someone to have what I didn't. Anna swallowed past the lump in her throat. The forest still called to her. Freedom lay only steps away. But something about Alara's trembling confession held her still. Maybe she wasn't running only from the king or her past. Maybe she had been running from herself, from the fear of facing the truth directly. She wiped her face with the back of her sleeve. What do I have to do? Alara took a steadying breath. First, you must return to the palace with me. Anna froze. Back? Now? Yes, Alara said. Before the guards realize you're gone, before the elders tighten security, and before my father prepares the ritual chamber. Anna looked at the forest one last time. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying freedom on its breath. Then she turned back to Alara. Her fear didn't disappear, but it sharpened into something steadier. Determination. Take me to the throne room, she said. Alara nodded once, eyes shining, not with triumph, but with relief. Stay close. We'll have to move quickly. And together, in that narrow stone passage where truth had nearly broken her, Anna walked back toward the palace she had tried so desperately to flee. Alara guided Anna back through the dark passageway, every step careful, every breath controlled. The return felt unreal. Anna had bolted from this palace in terror only minutes ago, yet now she was walking back into its marble heart by choice. Her legs trembled, but she forced herself to match the princess's calm pace. The air grew colder as they approached the greenhouse entrance. The torches outside flickered through the cracks in the wooden door, throwing thin beams of gold across the stone floor. Anna's pulse thudded in her ears. She wasn't sure whether she feared being caught or feared what would happen if she succeeded. Both felt equally overwhelming. Alara placed a hand on the door. 2 guards still patrol the courtyard, she said quietly. We must cross without drawing attention. Keep your head down and stay close to me. They won't question my presence, but they might question yours. Anna nodded, wiping the dampness from her palms on her skirt. Alara pushed the door open just enough for them to slip out. The night air rushed in, sharp with the scent of pine and burning torches. Anna felt exposed the moment her feet touched the gravel path again. Every shadow seemed to watch her. Every sound made her shoulders tense. The guards walked near the main archway, their pale eyes glowing faintly beneath their helmets. Alara moved in a straight, composed line, with Anna half a step behind her. Anna kept her gaze on the ground, pretending to be nothing more than a servant following an order. Her heart battered against her ribs. She could hear the guards' quiet voices, the soft scrape of their boots. One of them paused and glanced in their direction, and Anna's breath caught painfully in her throat. But the guard only bowed at the princess. saying nothing. Alara didn't break stride. Anna mirrored her calm as best she could until they reached the inner hallway. Only when the door shut behind them did she let out a long, shaking breath. Alara gave her a small nod. "You're doing well," she whispered. "The throne room is 2 floors up, past the east wing, but we can't approach it directly. The elders will be preparing for the blood moon ritual, and they'll expect you to be brought there at dawn. If we arrive too early, they may sense something is wrong." She glanced down the dim corridor. "There's a safer path, through the abandoned galleries. No one goes there at night." Anna followed her through twisting hallways lined with paintings of past rulers. Their eyes seemed to follow her, their expressions grave, as though judging the girl who dared to defy a pact older than any human memory. The air tasted dusty, mixed with a faint metallic chill that always signaled vampire enchantments nearby. Anna felt a wave of dizziness and stopped to steady herself against the wall. Alara immediately turned back. "Are you all right?" "It's just a lot," Anna murmured. The weight of what she was about to do pressed heavily against her chest. She was a servant, an ordinary girl. How could she stand before a king and break a magical pact that the entire kingdom depended on? What if she failed? What if the crest sensed her fear and shattered her mind? But she pushed the thoughts down. She needed to move. She needed to finish what she'd started by running. They continued on, entering a wing Anna had never seen. The gallery doors were tall and carved with symbols she didn't recognize. Alara pushed one open, and a wave of cold air swept out. Inside, rows of sculptures stood like silent sentinels. Their stone faces were half-shadowed, their features worn from age. Moonlight spilled through broken stained glass windows, casting fractured colors across the floor. The faint scent of old stone and forgotten stories filled the room. "This place was sealed after the War of Tears," Alara said softly. "The elders say it carries bad omens. But the truth is simpler. They prefer to forget their mistakes." Anna traced her fingers along a cracked pillar. "You're not like them," she said. It slipped out before she could think. But it was true. Alara had risked her safety, maybe even her future, to help her. Ilara's expression softened. "I learned early that power doesn't make someone wise. The court fears change more than they fear death, and they fear humans, especially those connected to the throne." She paused. "My father isn't evil, Anna. He's just trapped by the same throne he sits on. He believes this ritual will protect us all. But it will kill me," Anna whispered. Ilara nodded slowly. "Yes, and if he knew that truth, he would never allow the ritual. But the elders have hidden it from him too. That is why we must reach the throne room before they do." They reached the far end of the gallery, where a narrow spiral staircase rose into darkness. The air smelled colder here, tinged with the scent of ancient magic. Alara climbed first, her steps almost soundless. Anna followed, her hand skimming the stone wall for balance. The stairs twisted upward for what felt like forever, each step tightening the knot in Anna's stomach. At the top, they reached a balcony overlooking the grand hall. Far below, torches flickered around the high pillars. The throne room's massive doors stood closed at the opposite end, guarded by enchantments that shimmered faintly in the torchlight. Alara leaned close. "Those spells aren't active yet. They awaken at dawn. We need to enter before the crest binds itself to the ritual seals. If we time it right, you can stand before the throne and speak your rejection. The magic will obey you before it obeys the court." Anna swallowed hard. Her throat felt tight, her palms damp again. She stared at the massive doors, at the place where her fate would be decided. "I can do this," she whispered to herself. It sounded fragile, but Alara nodded as if she had spoken with complete certainty. "We will wait until the guards rotate," Alara said. "Then we move." Anna's breath shook. Her entire life had narrowed to this moment, to this impossible task. She wasn't ready. No one could be ready, but she would not run this time. She would face the truth, the king, and the magic that wanted to claim her, and she would decide her own fate. The minutes stretched like tightened strings as Anna and Alara waited on the balcony above the grand hall. From this height, Anna could see the faint shimmer of the throne's enchantments breathing in and out like a sleeping creature. The room was otherwise still, lit by torches whose flames whispered against the stone. Anna's pulse throbbed in her temples. She had imagined thrones before, golden, glorious ones from storybooks, but this one felt alive, as if watching her with invisible eyes. The air tasted metallic, like the moment before a storm. She pressed her trembling hands against the railing, trying to steady herself. Elara stood beside her, posture straight, eyes sharp, a calm that Anna desperately wished she shared. "The guards will rotate soon," she murmured. "We'll have only a narrow window. When the hallway empties, we descend the south stairway. It leads behind the tapestry near the throne." She pointed toward a large, draped curtain embroidered with the crest of the kingdom. "Behind it is a passage the elders rarely remember. It will give us a few precious seconds before they notice anything." Anna nodded, though her stomach twisted painfully. She inhaled deeply, letting the cold air burn her lungs. Below them, the torches cast long shadows across the marble. Somewhere far in the palace, a clock chimed softly, marking the hour before dawn. The blood moon ritual would begin soon. If they were too late, the magic would seal itself, and Anna's life would already be lost, even before she reached the throne. Before we continue, tell me in the comments what you think of this story so far and what you would do in her place. Don't leave the video, because what comes next will give you chills. The sound of approaching boots jolted her attention back to the hall. 2 guards appeared from the east wing, speaking in low voices, while another pair walked toward the opposite end. The moment the groups passed each other, there would be a brief gap, barely enough for 2 people to cross unseen, and only if they were quick. Elara's hand tightened around Anna's. "It's time." Anna followed her down the narrow staircase, each step heavier than the last. The walls felt strangely close, as if the palace itself sensed she no longer wished to belong to it. At the base of the stairs, they crouched behind a pillar. Anna's heart hammered hard enough that she feared the guards would hear it. The pairs of vampires were steps away now, moving in opposite directions. "Now," Elara whispered. They ran, silent, swift, their footsteps barely brushing the marble. Anna kept her head down, her breath shallow, her pulse roaring in her ears. The floor gleamed beneath them, reflecting their blurred forms. For a moment, they were completely exposed in the open hall. A torch crackled behind them. A guard cleared his throat. But no one turned. No one saw. They reached the tapestry. Elara slipped behind it first, tugging Anna after her. The narrow passage behind the curtain was dusty and cold, the faint scent of old herbs clinging to the stones. Anna pressed her hands to the wall to keep herself steady. Through a small slit in the tapestry's fabric, she could see the throne room below, huge, towering pillars, a floor polished like glass, and the throne itself carved from obsidian streaked with silver veins. It pulsed faintly with ancient magic that made her skin prickle. Elara touched her shoulder. "Listen to me," she whispered. "You must stand directly before the crest carved into the base of the throne. Look at it. Speak your rejection clearly without fear. The magic will react instantly. Once it does, step back. No matter what happens, do not touch the throne." Anna felt her breath hitch. "And the king?" Elara's expression softened painfully. "He may arrive before you finish. If he does, let me speak. He trusts me. Or he used to. Used to." The words carried a weight Anna didn't fully understand, but she saw the truth in Elara's eyes. Helping Anna was an act of rebellion, and it might cost the princess dearly. A faint hum filled the air as the enchantments began to shift. Dawn was approaching. The blood moon ritual was stirring. "Anna," Elara whispered, and her voice was no longer commanding, but pleading. "Whatever happens, do not give them your fear. Fear is what allows the crest to bind you. Your will is your only shield." Anna nodded, swallowing hard. Her legs felt weak, but determination pushed through her terror. She straightened her spine. "I'm ready." Elara brushed aside the last folds of the tapestry, and the throne room opened before them. Empty, silent, waiting. The presence of the throne pressed against Anna's senses like a deep vibration under her skin. She stepped out, her shoes clicking against the marble, the sound echoing through the vast chamber. The crest at the base of the throne glowed faintly, as if sensing her approach. A warm pressure built behind her eyes, urging her to kneel, to submit, to obey. But Anna forced herself forward until she stood directly before it. The air thickened, heavy with centuries of magic. Her breath came fast. She tasted iron on her tongue. Her voice trembled at first, then strengthened. "I reject the pact." The crest flickered. A sharp, ringing crack split the air. Anna took a step back, heart racing. "I reject the throne's claim on my life." A burst of light flared from the crest, throwing sparks across the marble. The throne groaned as if waking from a long sleep. Anna shielded her eyes. Then a deep voice thundered from behind the pillars. "Anna, stop!" The vampire king stepped into the room. His eyes glowed with shock, fear, and something far more complicated. The crest pulsed violently. She had already begun the breaking. Stopping was no longer an option. The king's voice crashed through the throne room like a shockwave, but Anna didn't turn toward him. She couldn't. The crest's light pulsed faster now, each flash pushing against her chest like a heavy heartbeat. Her skin prickled with heat, her breath catching in her throat. She could feel the throne, its ancient will, trying to pull her closer, trying to force her into stillness. She planted her feet hard on the marble and refused to move. Alara rushed from behind the tapestry, stepping in front of her father. "Stop!" she cried. "If you interrupt now, the magic will backlash, on her and on you." The king halted, but his expression was a storm. His silver eyes, colder and brighter than Alara's, focused on Anna with an intensity that made her knees weaken. "Why would you do this?" he demanded, voice cracking under the anger. "You are meant to be protected. The ritual was to ensure your survival." Anna finally turned toward him, her breath shaking. "You were lied to," she said. "They never told you what the ritual really cost." Confusion flashed across his face, then fear, real fear. He stepped closer, ignoring Ilara's warning hand. "Anna, come away from the crest. Let me—" A blast of magic tore across the room, stopping him mid-step. The throne reacted violently to his approach, the air rippling in waves. Anna staggered but stayed on her feet. The king shielded his face from the sparks, his voice now filled with alarm. "It's waking too fast. Anna, you must stop." "I can't," she said, breathless. "It's already begun." Alara grabbed her father's arm, pulling him back. "Let her finish. It's the only way to save her." The king looked at his daughter, stunned. "Save her?" he whispered. "I've spent 18 years trying to protect her." Anna's heart lurched. The words hit her harder than the magic. "Protect me? By binding me?" "No," he said fiercely. "Anna, you were brought here as a child because the court wanted to use you. I kept you away from them. I hid you by placing you with the servants. It was the only way to keep them from dragging you to the throne before you were grown." His voice dropped. "I would never have agreed to a ritual that harmed you." Anna's breath stilled. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to freeze. The king had protected her? The king she had feared, avoided, and believed was ready to sacrifice her? But the crest pulsed again, harder, demanding her full attention. She turned back toward it. The light grew brighter, pulling at her like a wave. The air trembled. Her hair lifted from her shoulders. Her vision shimmered. Anna forced the last words out with every ounce of strength she had left. "I reject the throne's claim. I reject the pact. My life is my own." The crest split down the center with a crack that echoed like thunder. A burst of golden white light surged upward, sweeping across the room. Anna shielded her face as heat exploded around her. The floor trembled. The throne groaned as if something ancient inside it finally broke apart. Then, silence. The glow faded slowly. The air settled. The palace shuddered once, then stilled completely. Anna stood in front of the throne, trembling, exhausted, alive. The crest was now dark, its power gone. The binding was broken. The king stared at her as if seeing her for the first time, not as a servant, not as a sacrifice, but as someone who had just altered the fate of the kingdom with a single act of will. Alara stepped beside Anna, gently steadying her arm. "It's done," she whispered. Anna exhaled shakily, her knees threatening to give out. The fear, the weight, the years of not knowing, They all crashed over her at once. But beneath the trembling, something new flickered in her chest. Freedom. Anna's legs nearly buckled, but she stayed upright, breathing through the lingering tremor in her chest. The throne room felt different now, lighter, as if some ancient weight had been lifted from the air itself. The shattered crest lay silent at the base of the throne, its silver lines now dull as old stone. She stared at it, hardly believing she had survived, that she had won, that she was no longer bound to anything but her own choices. The king slowly approached, but this time he moved like someone approaching a wounded creature, carefully, gently, without dominance. His tall figure cast a long shadow across the marble, but there was no threat in his steps, only regret and confusion. "Anna," he said quietly, the name sounding almost fragile on his tongue. "Why didn't you come to me? Why did you run?" Anna lifted her head. "Because no one ever told me the truth," she answered. "Not my parents, not the court. And I thought you were part of the trap." Her voice wavered, but she didn't look away. "No one ever gave me a choice. Until now." The king's expression cracked, pain, guilt, and something almost like relief flickering over his features. "If I had known what the ritual truly required—" He stopped, swallowing hard. "I never would have allowed them to prepare it. I thought it would keep you alive, not destroy you." Ilara stepped between them, her silver hair catching the fading glow of the torches. "Father, the elders lied to us both. They used your devotion to the throne and your attachment to Anna." Her voice softened. "You cared for her, even when she was hidden among the servants." The king looked away, jaw tightening. "I wanted her to grow without fear, without court venom, without the weight of the crown." Anna felt a prickling sensation behind her eyes. Not pain, but emotion creeping up from a place she hadn't touched in years. "Then why didn't you tell me?" He exhaled shakily. "Because I feared losing you the moment you knew how deeply the court wanted you." He hesitated. "And because I feared you would leave." Anna didn't know what to say. She had run the moment she learned the truth, but now, hearing this confession, she didn't feel triumphant. She felt heavy, conflicted, a little angry, a little grateful, human. Before she could answer, a low rumble echoed through the hall. The marble beneath their feet shivered. Ilara stiffened. "The elders felt the break," she whispered. "They'll come, and they'll be furious." Anna's breath caught. "Will they try to reverse it?" "They can't," Ilara said. "The pact is gone, but they may try to punish us for breaking it." The king lifted his head, and for the first time, Anna saw something unmistakable in his eyes. Fire. Not anger, but resolve. "Let them try," he said. "No elder touches either of you while I draw breath." He stepped closer to Anna. "The throne is weakened, yes, but the kingdom won't fall. We will rebuild it differently, without lies, without sacrifice." Anna searched his face, trying to understand him, not as a king, not as the man in the photograph, but as the person standing in front of her now. "You're not angry with me?" He almost smiled, almost. "You saved your life, and you saved mine from becoming something monstrous." His voice softened. "How could I ever be angry with that?" A warmth spread slowly through Anna's chest. Not trust. Trust would take time. But a door had opened inside her, one she had always kept closed. "Before we continue, tell me if you would have the courage to live a story like this, or if something similar has ever happened to you. Don't leave the video, because what comes next will give you chills." The torches hissed as the air thickened. Footsteps echoed from the corridor outside, the elders approaching fast. Ilara grabbed Anna's wrist. The king turned toward the doors, his cloak swirling behind him like a gathering storm. Anna felt her heartbeat quicken. She wasn't bound to the throne anymore. She wasn't a sacrifice. She wasn't powerless. But she was still in danger. The doors trembled as shadows gathered behind them. The king's eyes glowed faintly. "Stay behind me," he said. "This time, we face them together." Anna nodded, breath sharp, heart firming. She wasn't running anymore. The throne room doors burst open, slamming against the marble walls with a crack that echoed through the hall. A rush of cold air swept in, carrying the scent of old stone and bitter incense. 5 elders entered, tall, pale, robed in deep crimson. Their eyes glowed with a harsh metallic light that made Anna's skin prickle. They moved like shadows with shape, gliding rather than walking, their expressions twisted by outrage and disbelief. The eldest among them lifted his chin toward the shattered crest. "What have you done?" he hissed. "The pact was our kingdom's foundation." The vampire king stepped forward, placing himself between Anna and the elders. His presence filled the room, broad shoulders, unyielding stare, voice like calm thunder. "You hid the truth from me," he said. "You lied about the ritual. You lied about her fate. This kingdom will not be built on blood deceit." His tone was steady, but Anna could feel tension radiating from him, like a storm contained only by will. She stayed behind him, hands clenched at her sides, the broken crest still glowing faintly at the edge of her vision. The elders exchanged sharp, silent glances. Their disappointment cut through the air like knives. "We acted for the good of all," one said. "A weakening throne invites rebellion, chaos, war. The pact was necessary." And the girl, his eyes met Anna's, cold and calculating. She was chosen long before she understood her purpose. Anna's stomach twisted, but she didn't look away. She held his gaze, even as fear scraped against her ribs. Alara stepped forward, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "She survived the break. That alone proves she wasn't meant to die. Your interpretation of the pact was twisted by fear, by desperation." Her words echoed in the vast hall, sharp as glass. "And you would have sacrificed her for nothing." A murmur rippled through the elders. The eldest one sneered. "You are young, naive. You do not understand the cost of ruling." He turned his glare to the king. "And you, blinded by attachment, have doomed us all. Without an anchor, the throne will weaken. Magic will falter. Our borders will crumble." The king didn't flinch. "Then we will rebuild from truth, not from the bones of a child." Bone-deep silence fell. The elders' eyes darkened. Their disappointment transformed into something sharper, threatening, hungry. "If the throne fails," one whispered, "your bloodline fails with it." The implication hung heavy. Anna felt her pulse racing. The room felt colder now, each breath thin with tension. She stepped closer to the king's side, not because she felt safe, but because she refused to be treated as prey again. "I am not your anchor," she said, voice trembling but clear. "And I never will be. You don't get to decide my fate." Her words, soft as they were, hit the elders like a blow. The eldest's eyes widened, the glow in them flickering. For the first time, they looked uncertain, not of the throne's strength, but of Anna's. The broken crest pulsed again, as if echoing her defiance. Alara seized the moment. "Father," she said, "the kingdom doesn't need an anchor. It needs leadership that doesn't hide behind ancient chains." She stepped to Anna's other side, forming a united front. "Let us show them a different way." The king breathed deeply, his expression softening, not with weakness, but with realization. "Yes," he said, "a kingdom ruled by fear is no kingdom at all." The elders recoiled, scandalized. "You mean to stand against centuries of tradition?" one demanded. "Against your own counsel?" The king's gaze hardened. "If tradition demands sacrifice of the innocent, then yes, I stand against it." Lightning-like tension snapped between the two sides. Anna felt her heart stutter. Anything could happen now. Battle, punishment, exile. She didn't know what the elders would choose, but she knew one thing. She wasn't letting anyone decide her fate ever again. The eldest elder stepped forward, robes whispering across the floor. His voice dropped low, almost reverent. "Then hear us, king. If you break with tradition, the council will withdraw its support. You will stand alone." The king didn't hesitate. "Then so be it." The elders stared at him, stunned. Power shifted in the room, subtle, invisible, but real. Their authority cracked, just like the crest. One by one, they turned and swept out of the hall, their fury trailing behind them like smoke. When the doors closed, the silence that followed was sharp and weightless. Alara let out a long, shaky breath. Anna did too. The king looked at them both, Two girls who had stood against centuries of power, and something softened in his gaze. "You've changed this kingdom," he said quietly. "Both of you." Anna didn't answer. She needed time to understand what she had changed and what that would mean for her future. But for the first time in her life, the future belonged to her. When the elders' footsteps finally faded into the distant corridors, the throne room felt strangely hollow, as if the entire palace were holding its breath. Anna's pulse was still racing, but the crushing fear that had followed her for days began to slip away. The throne was dark, the crest was dead, and the weight that had shadowed her life since childhood, hidden or not, was gone. She took a slow breath, feeling the air settle in her chest for the first time without dread. Ilara placed a gentle hand on her arm. "Are you hurt?" she asked softly. Anna shook her head, though her body still hummed with the aftershocks of the crest's collapse. Every muscle felt tight, every movement deliberate, but she was alive, whole, free. "I'm all right," she whispered. It didn't feel real yet. Nothing did. The king studied her with a quiet, regretful intensity. "You should rest," he said. "Both of you. The court will be in chaos come morning, and I will need to address the kingdom before the rumors twist beyond repair." His voice softened as he turned to Anna. "I owe you more answers than I ever gave, and when you're ready, I will give them." Anna didn't respond. She wasn't ready. Not for explanations, not for memories she didn't recall, not for the broken pieces of history that tied her life to a throne she never wanted. But she understood something she hadn't before. The king wasn't her enemy. He wasn't the looming figure from the photograph. He was a man burdened by a crown he hadn't known how to carry, and she was a girl who had lived too long in the shadows of other people's choices. Ilara squeezed Anna's hand. "Come," she murmured. "You need rest." They walked back through the gallery passage, the stained glass casting pale, fractured light across the dusty floor. Anna felt the exhaustion seep into her bones. Her steps slowed. She leaned slightly into Ilara's steady presence. The quiet between them was warm, unlike the cold silence of the palace she had always known. "Ilara," she whispered after a while. "Thank you." The princess stopped, turning to look at her. Her silver eyes shone softly, no longer haunted by fear or secrecy. "I didn't save you," she said. "You saved yourself. I only showed you the door. You were the one who walked through it." Anna looked down at the stone beneath her feet. "I was terrified. And you acted anyway," Ilara replied. "That is courage." They reached the servants' wing, the place Anna had lived, worked, and hidden for so many years. Yet tonight, it felt entirely different. The narrow corridors didn't seem suffocating. The familiar scents, soap, old wood, herbs, didn't feel like chains. Her room, with its small bed and single window, no longer represented confinement. It represented the beginning of a life she could finally choose. Ilara paused at the doorway. "Get some sleep," she said. "I'll return at dawn. There are decisions to make, and my father will want to speak with you." Anna nodded. "Will the elders come after us?" Ilara's jaw tightened, but her eyes were steady. "Not tonight. They're reeling, and father has made his stance clear." Anna hesitated. "And you? Will you be in danger because of me?" Ilara gave a small smile, the first real smile Anna had seen from her. "Maybe, but for once, I don't care." This was the right thing. Anna stepped into her room. The princess lingered a moment longer, then turned to leave. Before the door shut, she looked back once more, her voice softer than a whisper. "Get rest, Anna. Tomorrow will be different." When Anna was alone, she sat on the edge of her bed, letting her trembling hands rest on her knees. She stared at the moonlight filtering through the small window. Everything she had run from, everything she had feared, everything she had fought, it all led to this quiet moment. She had survived. She had stood before the throne and refused its claim. She had changed the course of a kingdom. But most importantly, for the first time in her life, she belonged to herself. Before sleep claimed her, a single thought drifted through her mind, heavy and warm. Freedom was only the beginning. Anna woke to soft light spilling through her window and the distant hum of commotion in the palace. Voices echoed down the corridors, guards moving, servants whispering, advisors pacing. The kingdom was waking to a new reality, one without an anchor, one without the pact. Anna sat up slowly, her body still tired, but her mind clearer than it had been in days. For a moment, she simply breathed, letting the quiet settle around her. Today would not be easy, but it would be hers. A gentle knock sounded at the door. Ilara stepped in, cloak draped around her shoulders, her expression warm but cautious. "Good morning," she said. "The council is demanding answers. Father is preparing to address them. He asked for you." Anna felt her stomach twist. "Me?" Ilara nodded. "You broke the crest. You changed the kingdom. Whether they like it or not, you have a place in that room now." She reached out, brushing dust from Anna's sleeve. "You won't be alone. I'll be with you. And he will too." Anna followed her through the winding halls. The palace looked different in daylight, less threatening, less secretive. Where once she had walked with her head bowed, now she lifted her gaze. Servants who passed her paused, eyes widening with recognition. Some nodded at her respectfully. Others looked confused, but none looked away. When they reached the throne room, the king stood at the base of the steps, speaking with several high-ranking advisors. His eyes softened when he saw Anna. He dismissed the others and approached her slowly, as if afraid she might vanish. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I won't force you to speak, but your presence alone will silence many lies." Anna nodded, nerves fluttering in her chest. "I'll stand with you." The king let out a breath that sounded almost like relief. He led her to his side as the elders, nobles, and generals poured into the hall. Murmurs rose, accusations, confusion, outrage. But when the king raised a hand, silence rippled outward like a wave. "The pact has ended," he said, "by my will and by hers." He glanced at Anna with unmistakable respect. "No kingdom should be built on deception or unwilling sacrifice. We will rebuild with truth." A few elders stepped forward, voices sharp. "And what of the throne's power? What of our borders? Our enemies?" The king straightened, letting the full weight of his authority settle over the room. "Power built on fear is weakness. We will strengthen ourselves differently, and the throne will adapt, as will we." Ilara stepped up beside Anna. "Change is not the enemy," she said, "but clinging to cruelty is." Anna didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her presence, alive, free, unbroken, was evidence enough. The room shifted, the tension bending rather than snapping. Some elders looked ready to fight. Others lowered their gazes, grudgingly accepting what they could not undo. The kingdom was changing, whether they agreed or not. When the hall finally emptied, the king turned to Anna. His voice held quiet sincerity. "You are not bound to stay here," he said. "You may return to your village, travel the world, build a life far from this place. Whatever you choose freely." Anna felt something warm rise in her chest. "I don't know what I want yet," she admitted, "but I'd like time to figure it out." "You will have all the time you need," he said. Ilara smiled at her, soft, genuine, full of hope. "Whatever path you choose, you won't walk it alone unless you want to." For the first time, Anna believed it. She stepped out into the courtyard, the sun warming her face. The sky was bright, the morning air crisp. The world felt open, wide, uncertain, but in a way that thrilled her rather than frightened her. Her life was finally her own. Her choices were her own, and her future was unwritten. She took a deep breath and walked forward, not as a servant, not as a sacrifice, not as a secret, but as herself. What did you think of the story? Subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who will also be moved today.